Hello and welcome to the Opus Well Style podcast. I'm your host today, Evan Wohl, and here with my friend Adam Tesser. Adam, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
Busy day.
Yeah, yeah.
Things are good. I got your website over here on the on my other screen, and it's going through the people in bathing suits. So I might need to turn that off in a second. But today I appreciate you coming on, Adam. And
Sure.
what we're going to talk about is you and your business.
Okay.
So we like to have business owners on here and just interview you about your experience. How was it building a business? What were some of the struggles? What were some of the lessons learned? What would you wish you would have done differently? Those kinds of things,
Sure.
and just go from there. Have a just genuine conversation.
Okay. Where would you like to start?
Let's jump in. So your business, ostrichchairs.com is the website.
Yep.
Why don't we start there? Just kind of tell us a little bit about the business and at the beginning, like how it got started and go from
Sure.
there.
Okay. So with the business, it's simple. My business partner and I, we make unique beach chairs that allow a person to lie on their stomach comfortably. And what we started off was reading a book, but then it's morphed into, checking your phone, watching a podcast, anything like that. They can
Hmm.
do very comfortably on their stomach. It also functions as a traditional beach chair where you can close the face hole and sit on it, as you normally would on a beach chair. That was the original concept. Our business is mainly wholesale with a retail aspect to it. So we do sell on our website, but most of our business is we do direct import from China to our retail customers, and then they sell either in stores or online. So that was always the way I envisioned the business. I didn't really want to deal too much with inventory risk, having to deal with a large
Hmm.
warehouse, having to deal with all of that. So we were able to do that. The way the business started was my business partner, David D'Alessandro, had this idea on his honeymoon. My gosh, probably, I think back in 2002, I want to say, maybe 2003. And I think it was 2003. I don't know. Anyway,
Hmm.
anyway, he had this idea where he was on his honeymoon. He was having trouble getting comfortable on his stomach on a cruise, and he sketched out a design on graph paper and went to a local patent attorney and started the process. He came to me on his 30th birthday, at his 30th birthday surprise party, showed me the idea. At the time, I was trading commodities on the mercantile exchange. So I was in the pits. I don't know if you.
How long were you doing that?
I started that in June of '01, and I stopped doing it in 2012.
Hmm.
This was 2004. No, 2003 when he approached me. It was May 2003. And then we incorporated January 2004. Dave and I scoured the internet looking for manufacturers. We found one that spoke pretty good English. We flew to China sight unseen in June of '05. They had already started production on our chairs. They tried to bait and switch us on the price. Um, and
Did you
I
have a
told
patent yet at that point?
we had no, yes, the patent was issued June of '05. We filed in '03 and we got it published in '05.
Hmm.
So it was published right around the time we flew over there.
Hmm.
But so we were making the chairs. We had given them a down payment. We flew over to China, and they told us that the price that they had given us was not the price, and this was the real price. And I told them to keep the chairs. And, and Dave freaked out, and they freaked out because they didn't have anyone to buy them. And then we started negotiating a new price,
Hmm.
um, which was, I'll pat myself on the back. It was closer to the original price than the price that they were trying to get us to pay.
Hmm.
Uh, so we came to an agreement. The first run of beach chairs, literally, I don't know if you know what a 40-foot high cube container looks like. You've probably seen them on the highway. They're massive.
Uh-huh.
That was delivered in Dave's driveway. It was me, it was Dave, his brother, his brother-in-law, and me unloading 800 chairs out of a container in boxes of three, 804 to be exact. And we took these chairs. Dave and I rented a U-Haul. We had sold 100 of them to a place called beachstore.com. And we had a friend that at the time had uh, an eBay store. He took some on consignment. And then we went down to Spring Lake, put like 100 of them in Dave's in-laws' bed and breakfast. We took another 100 of them and brought them to LBI, Long Beach Island, and put them in Dave's parents' garage. And then we drove around the Jersey Shore from store to store selling them.
Now I can see why you don't want the inventory risk.
So we sold them, probably sold another 50 to 100 of them there. So we still had probably like 500 of them in Dave's garage. I was living in an apartment in Hoboken. That's all I got out of keeping any of them.
And so did everyone else also have like side jobs or I guess full-time
So
jobs
Dave,
at the point?
well, at that point, it was really just me and Dave. So I was working on the commodity floor. Dave was working in telecom. Dave was working from home. This was before work from home,
Yeah.
so it was very rare. But Dave was working from home 3 days a week.
Hmm.
This was after 9/11. So after 9/11, the hours on the Mercantile Exchange were 10 to 1:30.
Hmm.
So I would work in the morning till 9, send emails out to people, whatever. I would then get on the ferry, go to the Merc. I'd get there around 9:30, 9:40. I'd work till 1, or I'd work till 1:30. I'd run out, jump on a ferry, be back in my apartment by 2:30, and no one ever knew I wasn't there. I just took 2, 3 hours to reply to an email. So nobody that we worked with knew we had other jobs. So what we did was, back then, Amazon was just selling books.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
there was
seems like
like,
a lifetime ago.
right,
Just selling books.
this is 2000. Really, we got the chairs August 2005, which was not the best time to get them. So this is like now 2006,
Yeah.
and we sat on them that whole winter. Um, we, I would just cold call. There was like 8 different websites that sold beach chairs. There was like forthebeach.com, beachstore.com, beachnet.com.
Hmm.
There's like 8 of them. Beachchairs.com. So we were drop shipping them. If
No.
drop shipping means that this is basically selling them on consignment.
Hmm.
They would post it on their website. They would get the sale. They'd send us the order. We would ship it on their account, and then at a future date, they'd pay us for that chair.
Hmm.
So again, I was the one generating the business. I was the one cold calling these companies. Dave was the one fulfilling all the orders because they were in his garage,
Shipping them and everything. Yeah.
shipping them. Right. He was printing out the shipping labels and bringing them to FedEx, like a FedEx
Now
drop off.
in those early days, like the first year or two, like was there a lot of stress or anxiety that it wasn't going to work out, or any regret of what am I doing here?
No. I was very much of the belief that it was going to work out. Dave, my parents thought it was a side hustle.
Hmm.
Dave's Dave was hoped that one day he'd make $100,000 a year doing it. That was
Hmm.
his
Hmm.
dream.
Hmm.
Um, and but I always thought it was going to work out. And you're never sure, but um, you know, very quickly we saw that they did well online, and um, but so Dave and I had were conflicted because we didn't think we weren't neither of us were in a position to quit our jobs. So
Hmm.
neither of us could really work on this full time. I was probably in a better position to do it than Dave because he had a young family and I was still single, but I was making pretty good money on the Merc, and so I didn't
Were you
really.
financing all the purchases before you got
So
the?
the
Yeah.
way we did that was we were fortunate. You know, I hate it's we were we're fortunate people. It's it's not hard. It's not easy to start a business from nothing. We started the business on our own, which I'm very proud of, but we did have some help, and that help
Mhm.
came in the way of we borrowed money. The only way we were able to borrow money, we tried every different way, but the only way we were ever actually able to borrow money is we used Dave's parents' um, basically portfolio as collateral. They
Mhm.
allowed us to use their portfolio as collateral to get a line of credit.
It's
And
nice
that's
of
how
them.
we were able to do it. It
Mhm.
was very nice of them.
Mhm.
The good news is we never defaulted on,
Yeah.
on our
Yeah.
loans.
Yeah.
They were always Everything got paid back. We don't use that. We don't use that anymore, but
Okay.
we did use it for a few years. So yes, it was able to give us like a six-figure line of credit, which allowed us to keep our
Mhm.
business afloat. Also, we weren't paying ourselves anything.
Mhm.
So there was the only overhead, and we were both, we didn't have any office space, we didn't have anything. The only real overhead was the inventory.
Mhm.
Um, Everything
What,
else was sweat equity.
and did you never get like at what point did you get an actual place where where you store the inventory, or was it just
Okay,
bootstrapped to the beginning?
so what happened was there was a lot of stress on us because we were basically both working two jobs. We were looking for warehouse space, and somehow we found this guy who lived in South Jersey that wanted to take over our business.
Hmm.
And so it was these two guys down in South Jersey in Cherry Hill. One was the hustler and the other was the financier, and they licensed it from us. So they took over the entire thing. And so they got warehouse space. They started generating the business. They took all of the business that I had originally created. But let me back up a
Hmm.
little bit. What happened was is early on we were able to get ourselves in this trade show. I think through these two guys, they got us into a trade show. Uh, it was in Chicago, and a producer from Good Morning America saw it and took it and put it on Good Morning America.
Hmm.
And when it got on Good Morning America, Charlie Gibson called it the greatest beach chair he'd ever seen. And that weekend, this was early days. This is when TV was still king.
Hmm.
People didn't, there
Not much
wasn't much
social
in the way.
media.
There was no social media. Facebook was probably still just in colleges.
Mm-hmm.
And it was MySpace back
Mm-hmm.
then. So there was no real social advertising going on. So everything was TV. So that got on TV, and within 48 hours, we sold out of our first container. And that's when I started calling these companies back and saying, "We're out of the dropship business. You're going to place an order." So then they started placing these domestic orders from us. So we would basically have the container sold before we buy it. And that's around the time that these guys took over the whole thing. And they started doing the direct import programs where people would buy it out of China instead of us bringing it in and then sending it to them here, which saves a lot of money for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and at the time, there was also no tariff. So um, we did, they did that, and the way that the deal was written up was very good for us. There was a pretty high minimum annual payment that they had to make, and the rates that we were getting per unit were good. So the first year they gave us the minimum. The second year they gave us the minimum. So this is now like 2007, and we're like, this doesn't make any sense. We're seeing the volume, and you're only paying us the minimum. And your account, one of the financier was an accountant. I'm like, he's accounting. This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Then eventually they stopped paying us altogether, and so we went into litigation. And they stopped paying us, they stopped paying the freight forwarder, and they stopped paying the warehouse.
Mm.
Uh, the good news for us is they put a lot of money into marketing.
Okay.
So, and they were bought, and so it was a panic situation. This was 2000 now. This is now 2009. I am
During
just
the housing
getting
crisis.
Yes, this is during the
Okay.
housing crisis. This is just on the backside of the housing crisis. I am getting married, and I'm hearing from everybody. China's calling me in a panic saying, take the chairs on consignment, pay me when you sell them. That the foreigner saying everything's at the port, no one's paying us. So we paid the forwarder. We came to an agreement with the warehouse, and we were going to pay the factory um, when we could.
Yeah.
I get another call from a company called LTD Stores, who we don't work with anymore, and they were telling us that they had bought 5,000 shares. Where are they? They were supposed to get a direct import program. I said, oh, uh, I'll tell you what. Oh, and by the way, now I've figured out why we weren't getting paid. They told me the price that they had agreed on the chairs.
Mm.
That's like the cost. So we, I talked to this guy. I said, listen, here's what we can do. I have these chairs. They're going to be here in 2 weeks, but I'm bringing them in. I'm paying all the customs and the freight fees, and that price that you negotiated is non-tenable. If you want the chairs, we can do it at this price.
Mm-hmm.
So I made a few dollars a chair, but within 2 months, I was able to pay the factory everything. I was able to get the warehouse back to standard, and the forwarder was happy, and everyone was happy, and they were out. So, like, basically, the way that the agreement was, they owed us a number in the small six figures, and we basically said, we will end all this. You don't pay us anything, but you're done.
Yeah.
So this was 2009, and then
Would you define that as like the tipping point of the business?
no, that was when we started to run the business the way that I wanted to run the business, which was the direct import program.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was buying, but we weren't generating a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
The business was still pretty small. It was now, though, for us, a pretty good side hustle.
Mm-hmm.
So it was generating a decent second income.
But you're
Still not
on the mercantile exchange.
I was still on the mercantile exchange.
Yeah.
So I'm on the mercantile exchange. I was on the mercantile exchange for 3 more years, or 2.5 more years. March 2012. This is when it got scary. March 2012. I had just moved to Woodcliff Lake, less than a year earlier. I had a 20-month-old, a 22-month-old, and a newborn. And my company laid me off.
Mm.
And I was offered another job on the mercantile exchange. At this time, things were transitioning at the Merc away from physical trading, more towards electronic trading.
Mm-hmm.
It was getting very cutthroat. People were getting very angry all the time. And I was offered a job to go back. And I had a conversation with my wife. And I said, listen, I think I could make this company work. I'm going to do this full time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when things started to change quickly. So this is March 2012.
Was she nervous about that?
She had to go back. She wasn't great. She was she had just given birth to our second child.
Mm.
And she had to go back to work.
Yeah.
Which was not part of the plan. She hadn't worked really since we moved to New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
So she hadn't worked in, she wasn't making, she had small, she's a speech therapist. So she had a few private clients, but it wasn't it was grocery. It wasn't a lot.
Yeah.
She went back to work about 15 to 20 hours a week, I think. And I was working about 12 to 15 hours a day. Really just grinding, trying to get new business. And I was able to get Target.com on board, which was a pretty good account. And all of my accounts were growing. And around that time, I got a call. So remember, this is still the early stages of Amazon becoming the biggest seller in the world. And around 2010, 2011, all of my .coms. Oh, and I landed a pretty big deal with Wayfair. Wayfair was buying direct from me. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they don't do that with anybody. It's all drop shipped with them. But they were buying from me. So at the time, Wayfair, beachchairs.com, beachstore.com, beachnet.com, they were all selling on Amazon wholesale.
Hmm.
So they were buying my product, selling it on their own website, and selling it on Amazon. So what Amazon was doing was collecting data.
Hmm.
So I got a call from Amazon that, like in 2012. They called me and said, listen, we see that you're doing a lot of business. What, how do you feel about, selling just directly to us instead of selling through all them to us, through us? And I'm like, that sounds great. And then they started talking about buying it out of my warehouse. I said, listen, I got a few hundred chairs in my warehouse. Would you consider a direct import program? So he hangs up the phone with me and said, I'll call you back. And he calls me back like a day later. I wish this guy was still the buyer there, but anyway, um,
Hmm.
calls me back and says, listen, uh, we don't go direct import with anybody to start, but because we have all this data, we're going to make an exception. We were the first direct import customer in the lawn and garden department
Wow.
for Amazon. And so they went direct import, and those sales grew very fast. So that was 2012. Once that revenue started coming in from Amazon, Dave quit his job in 2013. He was empowered and quit, unlike me, who was forced into
What was Dave doing this whole time?
it. Telecom. Dave was working in telecom. Don't ask me what he was doing there. He was a buyer. He
Okay.
was a buyer in telecom, so he was like buying switches. I don't know.
And what about the two other guys in Cherry Hill or South Jersey?
They were phased out. We phased them out a couple years earlier.
Hmm.
So it was just me and Dave. And Dave came on full time. Dave took on the Target account. Uh, we got, we were working with this company called, what was their name? Um, they were beachchairs.com, but the parent company was something else. Hay Needle.
Hmm.
Hay Needle was bought by Jet. Jet was bought by Walmart. We ended up in Walmart. So in Walmart.com. So those things started to spiral in that direction, and that's brought us to where we are now, which is dealing with. There's
And
always something.
and it's still just you and Dave, no other employees?
We have a warehouse manager who also handles our customer service, who also uh, handles uh, our like integration with the sites to get
Hmm.
everything in through the warehouse. But he's contracted. We are Dave's daughter Ava, who's still in college, is doing a lot of our marketing. We have
Awesome.
hired but we've hired. She's actually learning on the job because we have hired a marketing consultant recently. But to answer your question, Dave and I are the only full-time employees. Everything else is 1099 contracted.
Hmm. Do you think that's the vision for the next like 5 or 10 years? What do you see in the future?
5 or 10 years, hopefully in 10 years I've sold.
Yeah, let's call it five
Well,
years
okay,
or
yeah.
whatever.
It's hard to say. If I think if we were to, Dave's lives in Hopewell. I don't know if you know where that is, but it's
Okay.
down near Prince. It's near
Okay.
Princeton.
Okay.
So he's a solid hour and 20 minutes away.
Hmm.
So us to get a centralized space isn't really that realistic. We tried it and it was awful.
Hmm.
We were commuting to Morristown,
Hmm.
both of us, and it was miserable.
Hmm.
Um, so hiring a full-time employee, working remotely, there would have to be some real trust there. I think we will do it. Um, I, if we can, what would justify it would probably be more large customers
Hmm.
because managing large customers is it's a relative full-time job per
Hmm.
customer, and we do it ourselves. Um, so if we were able to get enough, you know, I call them big box um, customers, then yeah, we probably have to hire somebody, and probably because of our size, we would consider even a small ownership share if they were able
Hmm.
to do uh, the job for a certain amount of time, I think, and be successful.
So In terms of lessons learned, is there anything you
Oh,
look back and think, I wish I had done this differently, or this was a turning point where I, wish we'd marketed better or differently?
so we didn't market anything for years.
Hmm.
We had a $0 marketing spend. Our marketing consultant tells us how great that is. But as we pay him every
Yeah.
month. But and I tease, he's great. But it's it's I wonder how things would have been if we would have grown faster if we had actually spent real marketing. And Dave's gonna shoot me for that because he's always been the one to shout that we need to spend on marketing. I've always been the one like, why should we do that? Because
Yeah.
all of our customers are doing that for us. But I don't I don't know in that regard. Now what we're doing I think we're at a pivotal point again right now
Hmm.
in that we are starting to focus more on our brand. We started this really like 2 years ago to really focus on our brand. Something that I would have done differently. Okay, I'm gonna back. Something that I would have done differently is I would have focused much more on what we do best, which is the face down beach chair.
Hmm.
We tried all sorts of different products.
Hmm.
Um, some that I thought were going to be home runs. Like we made if you've gone on our website, it's still on there. We made something called the pack seat,
Hmm.
which is we've done two iterations of it. The first one was like a full backpack, like a backpack suitable for everything. It was like a fully
Like a beach
utilitized,
chair backpack kind of.
but no, it wasn't a beach chair. It was like a stadium seat.
Okay.
So it was a backpack that had a little flap down seat, like a crazy creek. You know what a
Yeah.
crazy creek is? Like a
Yeah.
crazy creek. And it was adjustable. You could sit on the ground. And I was on TV with that. I got picked up by, this was a long time ago. I was living in the city. I was on the show called The Big Idea with Donnie Deutsch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
used
I
to
was on
love
that
that
show.
show.
Oh, you could
I
probably find that archive footage.
yeah.
I'm on there and I'm like,
That
I'm
was
like,
like Shark Tank
it was
before
like
Shark
Shark Tank
Tank.
before Shark Tank, right? So I was on. There was like a panel of three people talking to me about the product, and they were like, "I think this is $1 billion idea." I'm like, "Great. If you like what I have some in the closet." Uh, it just never took off. We've done, you know, different products. We made a camping chair with like a fishing rod holder,
Hmm.
but it didn't have the face hole and armholes. Didn't sell.
Yeah.
So we should have been, and also I think we've possibly made too many iterations of the same model
Hmm.
and then but um, I think if I had to do something over again, I think I would have insisted on being more focused on what we're known for than
Hmm.
trying to branch out into other things. We considered ourselves a full length, like outdoor living
Brand.
company,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? When in fact we are a face down beach chair brand.
Hmm.
So I think we learned that the hard way, which is we made a lot of products that were not face down beach chair, and to date, none of those products even touched the success of the face down beach chairs.
Hmm.
So I think that's something I would have done differently if I had to do it all over again. And I will admit, it took us a long time to realize that was what our brand really is.
Yeah.
And once we did, I think now that we're focusing on that and pushing the brand for what it truly is, we are seeing success. We are seeing more people coming to our site. We are seeing like if we're able to search like key terms on Amazon through our vendor account,
Hmm.
we are seeing that ostrich is being searched a lot.
Hmm.
So and that's really something that's really grown in the last 2 to 3 years. So that's what we've done. And with that, now we're saying we could probably parlay this into more direct to consumer business,
Hmm.
which is a, a fraction of our overall business is direct to consumer. So we actually partnered with one of our wholesale customers where they're buying the chairs from us and we are taking those chairs. And if we run out of inventory on our end, we are able to list their chairs on our website.
Hmm.
The consumer doesn't know where the chair is coming
Sure.
from.
Sure.
They're just buying it to our website and they're getting the chair. But
Hmm.
so we're able to sell them to the chair at the wholesale price. They will resell the chair on our website and give us a percentage of that sale. So we're getting paid twice on the same chair.
Hmm.
A small amount on the second portion, but I think it's a win-win for both. It gives them another avenue to sell the chair. They're what is called a marketplace reseller, which is a very uh, which we get. There's a lot of. There's more than you think. What a marketplace reseller is they don't really sell at their own on their own place.
Hmm.
They buy the product and then they sell it mainly on Amazon or Walmart.com or Target.com or Sears.com or eBay,
Hmm.
any of those sites. So they're called marketplace resellers. So they're just using us as another marketplace.
Were you
Um,
were you always entrepreneurial? Like, did you envision when you were younger? Did you envision yourself being a business owner?
um, I think I always, when I was entrepreneurial, I just might have been a little bit scared of
Hmm.
being an entrepreneur.
Like, if Dave never
Um,
came to you with this idea, you think you would have ever like started another business, or you kind of
yes.
needed that?
No,
Yeah.
no, no. Yes. I was even before Dave came to me, I was trying to get my own company launched on the Merc.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast we could talk about.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, um, but yeah, so I think, and I once I started it, once I started being an entrepreneur, like really being an entrepreneur, which was 2012. I mean, I had my own business, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
Once I didn't have someone to answer to, really, it changed my perspective on a lot of things.
Do you think you wish you would have done
I
that
became happier.
earlier?
Yes,
Leave the mercantile earlier?
yes,
Hmm.
absolutely. I wish I left in '09.
Probably
I
harder
left.
to do with little babies at home, but
Well, I didn't have a baby until 10. But yes, I wish that when we were closing out the business with the licensors,
hmm.
when we were after that litigation was settled, I should have left then. I should have left in 2009 instead of 2012. I I didn't have as many responsibilities. I had many more responsibilities in 2012 than I had in 2009. Um, in 2009, when that was going down, I was just getting married.
Hmm.
I was living in a rental apartment, a one-bedroom rental apartment in the city,
Hmm.
and my wife was paying half the rent,
Hmm. Hmm.
sort of. She could have paid half. She could have paid half the rent if that was the agreement. But so
Yeah.
she, back then she had a full-time job before, so she
Hmm.
was working full-time hours. So it would have been probably easier, but maybe I wouldn't have been as hungry. I don't know because I
You,
wouldn't have had the need to grow it as fast.
yeah, you never know.
Yeah, you never know. I think '09 would have been the right time though, not 12.
Hmm.
12 was more of a, I was forced into it,
Yeah.
luckily.
Yeah.
Um, and it
Yeah.
would have been
Thank
better
God
to,
you lost
yeah,
your job.
like, yeah. And I've said that to other people that have lost their jobs. Trust me,
Yeah.
you're smart enough to figure it out. I've known several people that have lost their jobs, and it's been the best thing that ever happened to them.
Yeah.
It's more often than not.
Yeah.
Um, because a lot of times when you lose your job, you've been there too long anyway.
Yeah. There's a reason for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's yeah, 2009 would have been ideal, and I would have been able to do, and I would have done it on my own terms, which would have been more empowered. It's a better, I guess, I don't know which is a better story, doing it when you have, you know, a brand new baby, or doing it on your own terms. But
It's all good. It's all good story.
for my ego, it would have been better to do it on my own terms.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on. For anyone interested, again, ostrichchairs.com. Adam, anything you want to leave our audience with, just either on the business in general, starting their own business, or anything in general?
Um, I would say things happen for a reason, and don't get too upset if in the moment something seems like everything's going against you.
Yeah.
A lot of times in reality, it's just starting to go your way.
Well, that right. I totally agree. That's when you're learning the most. When
Hmm.
things are the hardest.
Exactly.
When what
Exactly.
feels like a failure, that's when you're learning the most. Because when
I don't
things are all great, you're not really learning
right.
much. You're not
I
growing
don't
much.
know if this will make the podcast, but I don't know if you saw that Rick Pitino thing. If you
Uh,
haven't seen it,
oh, of
what
him in a locker room about
him in the locker room yelling at his
I
kids
didn't
about
actually see
adversity,
it recently. Yeah, yeah.
yelling at his kids about adversity, and
A lot of
it's
charisma.
true.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not for
Yeah.
it's
It's all
it's
good.
it's rated R,
Yeah.
but it's the point is there, and I think that I think every generation is a little softer than the last,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
and the generations coming up now are protected a little bit too much from adversity, and I
Hmm.
think a little adversity is very healthy for everybody.
Yeah. I'm finishing up Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck, I think it is. Great,
Okay,
great book. Speaks all about that, both in terms of business and parenting. Um, and so it's helped me
right.
have some good conversations with my kids
Right.
on, yeah,
Jody's reading a similar book about letting. It's really just about letting your kids figure it out, letting them
yeah,
fail a little bit
yeah,
more
yeah,
on their own, letting them
yeah.
figure it out. I don't remember the title, but she's been reading it. She's getting into more of a parenting uh, uh, thing. She does this thing called positive discipline. So um, we'll give
Whole
her a
phase of
little
life.
plug.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it. All right. Well, Adam, thanks again for coming on. I appreciate it.
No, that's what it's fun.
To the listening audience, thanks for tuning in. If you're interested, give it a like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.